This is the International Conference for Distance Education, and this is OnDAUnet broadcasting from the International Convention Center of Costa Rica. And we have the great pleasure to have Mr. Tony Bates. Thank you very much for being with us from Contact North as well, from Canada. We had a prior conversation with Steve, now we have with Tony, and it's a pleasure to have you here. And one of the pledges you did is we need to take more advantage of video in distance learning. So maybe tell us about all the thoughts you have brought to here about the importance, because that's what we are doing, video for distance learning.
Well, video has been used in distance learning for a very long time. Here in Central America, you've had in El Salvador the educational television experiment back in the 1970s. But it's been used mainly for lecturing. And I guess my main concern is that television can do much more than just relay lectures. If you do that, you're not really exploiting the unique advantages of television for education. There are things it can do for teaching that will be very difficult. That will be very difficult to do in any other way. So my concern is that most instructors don't know about this. They're not television producers. They don't see what the benefits are. They don't see why they should use it. So we've made a set of 6 videos, partly as a UNESCO project, that tries to show other ways of using video for teaching in higher education that go well beyond lectures.
And maybe we cannot use the videos here, but maybe explain what other ideas can we use, because definitely lectures is the first on the list. Yeah. But definitely the media has much more to offer, and the advantage of open television, and UNED is going to have from the next year on our very own TV channel on air in terrestrial television. What other uses can we do of video in education?
Well, that depends a little bit on the learning context. Will students be able to record or see the programs online or again? And my understanding is you're using video to get to areas where they don't have good internet access. So they're still only going to see it once. And that does limit what you can do with video. But for example, you can bring them video of things they couldn't see or couldn't do where they are at the moment. So that's obvious things. So if you wanted to show, for instance, a particular technique that's only done in a university here in San Jose, but you wanted them to see that technique being used and explained, then that will be a very good use of the video. It wouldn't be for the professor to lecture, other than to explain what the equipment's doing and how it works and so on. So that's one obvious one. One of the examples we use is a full production of the anatomy of the human brain. Now, human brains are hard to get hold of for anatomy purposes, because once you cut it up, you have to throw it away. And it's not easy to get hold of a brain in the first place.
you need a person to get a brain.
That's right. So it helps if they're dead. So once you've got that brain and you've got video, you can record, you can dissect it and explain it, and you only need to use the brain once then, and you don't need another brain because you've got that video and you can use it over and over again. So that's what I mean about the affordance or the unique value of video for teaching. What other examples can I think of? Well, you can use drama, for instance. If you're teaching somebody how to do a home visit, and the husband is aggressive and maybe the husband's been punching his wife, right? And you need to go in as a home visitor to try to get the woman out of that dangerous situation, but you have to handle the husband as well in a difficult situation. Well, you can make a recording, you could dramatize that and make a recording, and then you could up various outcomes. So you could stop the video and ask the students to make a decision. What would you do now? And then you could show 2 or 3 videos, depending on what decision they made, as to the likely outcomes. Now, you couldn't do that otherwise without using some form of video to do that. So that's what I mean by the unique affordances of video.
Definitely, and somehow we were discussing McLuhan prior to the conversation, one of the Canadian authors, and he always, as a communication author, spoke about Herbert Marshall McLuhan. He always said that the media was an extension of our senses, that we could see and experience things we cannot experience ourselves because they're very far away, by what I see through the television. In this case, video would be that way of experiencing things outside. For example, I've never been to Canada, but all of what I know about Canada is related to people that has spoken to me about Canada, or what I've seen through television.
Yeah. Now, one of the things you need to think of if you're an instructor in that situation is not, I've got a lecture, so how do I illustrate it? But how could I deliver this course thinking differently, knowing I can use video for it? I don't have to give a lecture. Maybe I could put my lecture, I could write it out and send it to the students as a text and use the video to do exactly what you said, is to provide those examples that are abstract in the text, but are more concrete when you see them through the video.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking also things like, I don't know if you're teaching mechanics of how to fix a car or something, all of that can be shown process by process.
I have a model for making decisions about whether to use video or audio or text. It's called a sections model, and SECTIONS, and each letter stands for one of the things you should be thinking about whether you should use video or text and so on. So S stands for the students. Do the students have the technology? If they don't have the technology, then you can't use it, which is why you're using television instead of the internet for the rural areas. The second one is ease of use. Is it easy for the instructor to use? And video is getting much easier for the instructor to use. We can do it on our iPhones now. You know, you don't need a production studio, although it always helps to use one. The C is for cost. How much is it going to cost to do this? Can I afford to hire actors? If I can't afford to hire actors, I can't do that.
You can put the students to act.
Yes, and cost is relative always, but and T is for the affordances. Am I exploiting the teaching functions of the medium in the best way? And I could go through the list, but it's a model for making that decision about what to use.
No, definitely. And now that we have just heard, for example, from the Virtual University of Pakistan, and they have 4 TV channels by satellite. So you hear, and they also have that presence on the cable operators of the country, and so on and so on. What is the role of traditional media within this world where internet is coming, and AI and the megaverse and things like that?
Well, what the internet does is to integrate different medium. So the internet has text, it has audio, it has video. So an AI will probably be integrated also. So it's not a question of one or the other now. You have the option of everything. And that, You know, it's like when you're poor, deciding what to spend your money on is easy. You have food and shelter. When you have lots of money, the decision becomes more difficult. And that's where we are with media now. We have so much choice. And so we need to be more discriminatory about how we use the different media within the internet. So I think that one of the things I wanted to say is that as well as the media, you have to integrate it with student activities. Otherwise, students become just passive and they don't interact with the most important part of my sections model is I for interaction. How will the students interact with this? What questions are you going to ask them about the media that you're using? So if you're showing something about Canada, what is it you want them to get about Canada, and how do they get that from watching the video? You need to put questions or some form of engagement of the learner into that process. Incidentally, that would apply to your lecturing as well. One of the big problems of using video for lecturing is that students' attention switches off after 10 minutes of talking. If you keep talking for 10 minutes, they'll stop listening. So you need to build interaction into any use of media so that students are processing it and thinking about it and using it.
Definitely. And one of the things we were discussing when we met is this project we have of putting students to produce content for the television channel in rural areas so they can show their visions, production of television to the whole country, but with the vision of that region embedded in the content. What recommendations can you do to such a kind of project so that it's successful for learning, for teaching, and for the expression of the communities as well?
I think it's very good. I think that there are 2 or 3 separate things. The first one, involving students in the production of video, is really good because they bring a freshness and an energy to television productions, right? So, and also it's a good learning experience for them in itself. You're not teaching them to be television producers, but you're getting them interested in the medium, and so it has a good educational benefit on its own in involving students in production. The second is the focus on the local region and what is it that makes it different from the rest of Costa Rica. And again, what does it have to offer to the rest of Costa Rica? What can Costa Ricans learn from that? So that's the second focus that the video should be on. It shouldn't be something that could be produced in San Jose, for instance. It's not just because it's local, it's got to be more than just local, it's got to be relevantly local. So those are the 2 main things I would say about local production. Now, it doesn't mean to say that you should only deal with topics in one region that they won't deal with in another, because that won't be of any interest to anybody else. But nevertheless, there are, I mean, I know that there are areas, for instance, where you grow cocoa beans and so on. Does that have relevance to the areas where they grow coffee or bananas? So the question is, how does this be of relevance, although it's local, to the country as a whole?
Great questions to make, definitely. As for this gathering, like after the pandemic, maybe this is one of the first big gatherings of people from all around the world that actually touch each other and realize they are not virtual things that are in a computer. What is the importance of having such events, even after the pandemics, when we thought virtual could solve everything?
Yeah, it's a good question. The big problem for me of having in-face international conferences is the environmental impact of everybody flying across different countries. And that does bother me now. I'm not sure we should do that unless it's absolutely necessary now. We can do a lot at a distance, but as always, it's not just for conferences, but for teaching, there's a very strong human element and a need for people to meet in person and to talk to one another in person and to shake hands and put your arm around them and have that physical contact. I think that's really important for us as human beings. So one of the things we have to be careful about in our use of technology is that it doesn't replace those other important aspects of being human. So I think a conference every 4 years, that's fine, face to face, and then virtual the other 3 years. What I'm not too sure about are hybrid conferences where some people are there face to face and others are coming in by video, because one of the things we found from doing video conferencing research was that if you have, say, a professor in one campus and students in another campus, and they both have students in front of them, the students in front of the professor always gets more attention on the video conference than the students at a distance. And I think that happens in conferences as well, that there's more focus on the people in the room than there is on the people who aren't in the room.
I think the mind is not capable of actually
right.
putting attention to both.
Maybe we can learn that. Maybe we're humans. We learn things and we can improve. But at the moment, I would prefer either fully in-person conferences or fully online conferences.
Yeah. Well, a final reflection maybe on like recommendations for distance learning universities to remain relevant. Mr. Tony, they have a microphone change there, technical things. Maybe a recommendation for this university to remain relevant with all the influence of AI and everything that has come in the last years.
Open universities are primarily about increasing access to learning, getting to people who would otherwise have difficulty learning. And AI doesn't solve necessarily the access problem. In fact, it could increase it. If people don't have access to AI, then they will be even more disadvantaged. So, but as the number of students who can go to regular universities increases, then the function of UNED becomes more narrow if you're not careful. And so maybe as Costa Rica is, it's not a poor country anymore, it's a medium-sized economy, and as more people can afford to go to on-campus universities, then maybe you should look a little bit further beyond Costa Rica and offer programs, if you're not already doing that, to other countries where the access is less good in Latin America. So yes, I don't think you can stay as you are as an open university. You have to keep moving and you have to keep relevant.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Ms. Tony, for this conversation.
Right.
And pura vida. Welcome to our
Pura
country.
vida, sí. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, and thank you very much for tuning in. This is the International Conference of Distance Education. We are doing another little break, and we keep on traveling the world, hearing the voices of the people that is gathering here today at this World Conference. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the tech team for all the job, Randall, Eduardo, and Jose. Thank you very much.